welcome to Haunted Halloweek, my little series I'm going to do on my channel for starting today all the way up until the day after Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, where I'm going to talk about everything haunted, haunted locations, haunted objects, haunted people, everything. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I am wearing my same costume as I was in my last video. If you didn't see that one though, I am a zombie. Get it? Zombie. Don't worry, this is fake. It is liquid latex and that like fake blood and stuff. This is my first little like SFX makeup I've ever really done, and it's actually fun. I'd like to do more like those types of videos and makeup videos on my channel. But anywho, also sorry about the lighting. My lights are being all weird today, and I also have gray eyeshadow under here. But hopefully it just makes me look more like a zombie, because I actually am a mom bee, which if you are too, you know that we always have bags under our eyes. So anywho, for the first day of Haunted Halloweek, we are going to get into we're going to talk about a haunted object. And this one's kind of a long one. Of course, I wrote notes like an old school, weirdo back in the day when people used to write. So I'm going to try not to read as much as, I notice in my videos I'm always just like reading my notes word for word. So I tried to do it more where I can like, it's just little notes and I can look up and actually talk to you guys. I don't know what baby's doing, licking herself. Excuse her. Stop that. Weirdo. Right there. Oh gosh. Oh, jeez. Alright. Anywho, let's get right into it. Today we are going to talk about the Conjure chest. If you haven't heard about it before, it is crazy. But like I will say with all of these haunted stories and stuff like that, there obviously usually isn't ever 100% proof. And I know that a lot of people, even watching this, are skeptics and gonna be like, this is completely fake, blah, 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 which you are entitled to your opinion. But I will just say that please be kind in the comments. And if you aren't into paranormal, haunted, stuff like that, then you don't have to watch it. Simple as that. It actually looks like my face is peeling off. It's weird. Anyways, so the Conjure chest. It starts with a wealthy man named Jacob Cooley, which when I first heard his name, because I listened to it on a podcast, I thought they said his name was Jacob Cruelly. I can't say that word. Cruelly, which would totally fit him, but it's Cooley. When he demanded his slave Hosea, I think that's how you say his name. We're just gonna say Hosea. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. To build a chest of drawers for his upcoming son's birth. Hosea worked as quickly but intricately, like this. What this dude built in that amount of time is insane. He worked as quickly as he could, even though he was only given a short period of time. I think the woman obviously was already pregnant, and they just wanted to get it done as quickly as possible. Oh, where am I going? Oh, Hosea carved and handcrafted a beautiful large chest of drawers, which I'll insert a picture of. For some reason, though, Jacob Cooley was not pleased and didn't like the chest at all. He said it was poorly executed and ugly, which it is different looking, but I would not say it's ugly. Sadly, he then whipped and beat Hosea to a pulp and ended up killing him. Cooley's other slaves, you gotta be patient with me. I'm just coming back to start making videos, so I'm stumbling over my words a lot. Sorry about that. Cooley's other slaves found out about this and vowed to avenge Hosea's death. These other slaves got a hold of a conjure man and it says either and or a voodoo practitioner to curse the chest one day while Jacob was gone. The curse was that whoever's clothes were put in the chest would soon after die for all generations to come, as well as curse the whole Cooley family themselves. Up to 17 deaths were actually attributed to this chest of drawers, which just sounds crazy, but that's what they say. Up to 17 deaths were somehow connected to this chest. After the newborn, or where was I going with that? Oh, not soon after Jacob's son was born, he died just a few months later. The chest was in the child's nursery, and they had put his clothes inside of the chest. After the newborn passed, not knowing about the curse, Jacob then gave the chest to one of his eldest sons. Not long after acquiring the chest, that son was actually murdered. He was stabbed to death by his own personal servant. So here it's already starting. The chest was then given to Jacob's other eldest son, John, and his wife Ellie. Which I'm not sure why, by then Jacob didn't think something strange was going on, but he was a really hard-headed man, so he probably didn't believe in all that kind of stuff. John's wife, Ellie, however, did think that it was strange with what happened to her husband's siblings, so she kept the chest locked away in their attic. The chest didn't only affect those who possessed it, though. It seemed to curse all of the Cooley family and, anyone even who married in the family, just everybody. Jacob Cooley's youngest daughter, Melinda, so sorry if it skips around a lot from kid to kid. Hopefully you guys can keep up. Jacob Cooley's youngest daughter, Melinda, eloped at an early age with an older Irish man named Sean. Because of this, her father somewhat completely disowned her. Because of her father kind of disowning her and being, young and newly married, Melinda turned to John and Ellie for help and guidance. Where am I? John and Ellie were actually doing really well for themselves, and they actually gave one of their farmhouses to the struggling newlyweds, Melinda and Sean, as long as they took care of the farm and stuff like that. Melinda then began to give birth to a brood, that's what it said in my research, of children, and took care of the kids in the new farm all day and night. She worked her keister off all by herself. Sean didn't like the farm family life. Her sister-in-law Ellie helped out as much as she could. Melinda tried to make her family life work. Pardon me. Melinda tried to make her family life work, but Sean eventually left her for city life. Whatever he said that is. Excuse me. Soon after, Melinda actually ended up becoming very, very ill and ended up passing away, only barely in her early 30s. Mere months after Melinda died, her estranged husband, Sean, was also killed. He was struck in the head by a gangplank on a steamboat he had recently begun work on. So, here it goes. Just start going down like dominoes. Sorry, that's kind of gruesome, but that's how it seems. This left all of their children orphaned and in the care of John and Ellie. Unable to raise them all, John sent almost all of the kids to live with different relatives they had in Tennessee, which I don't really get this, because if they were very well off, I don't know why they didn't keep all the kids, but I get it. But the youngest, a toddler named Evelyn, became really attached to John and Ellie, so they kept her and raised her as their own, in their family in Kentucky. Evelyn grew up to be a beautiful, so now we're in this next, third generation. Evelyn grew up to be a beautiful, very intelligent young woman. At only 16, she passed an exam that gave her a teaching certificate. She soon after became a teacher at a local one-room schoolhouse. Only a few months after becoming a teacher, she met she met and quickly married a Scotsman named Malcolm Johnson. Because nothing bad had happened to Ellie and John while they had the chest, except for the sisters passing and losing their nieces and nephews, you would think they'd attribute to that, but I guess not. Ellie decided to give the chest to her, adopted daughter Evelyn as a wedding present. So now this evil item was passed to a new generation, like I said. This is when things started getting crazy and kind of a bit even more confusing than it is now, so I'll try and keep it as clean as I can, I guess. I don't know. Evelyn had children herself and even adopted a young orphan. Since she herself had been adopted by her aunt and uncle, she always had dreams to adopt. So she adopted a girl named Arabella. Throughout her children's younger years, Evelyn had the chest, but she never used it. It kind of just sat in her home, never used, kind of in storage, because she really never had much room or use for it, I guess. It doesn't really say really what she did with the chest while her kids were young, but it just says that she didn't use it. I tried researching it, but I found nothing. However, once her children became young adults and teenagers, she brought the chest out to used to like store family items and the kids' old clothes and stuff like that. So now it skips forward even more. I know this is so confusing. Hopefully you're keeping up with me. Evelyn's adopted daughter, Arabella, grew up, and at age 16 she ended up getting married. Evelyn kept a hold of Arabella's wedding gown and ended up putting it, to keep in storage inside of the chest for safekeeping. Shortly after this, Arabella's husband actually ended up dying. Arabella was pregnant at the time of her husband's passing, so she then moved in with Evelyn to have her mother, help her, being young and widowed and with the baby. This was the beginning of the worst for Evelyn and Arabella. Arabella kept her newborn baby's clothes in the chest after the baby was born. And can you guess what happened? Sadly, the baby died before the age of 1. Still, nobody somehow had put 2 and 2 together about the chest. It seems that maybe since Ellie thought nothing bad happened to them and she gave it to Evelyn, maybe Evelyn didn't know about the history of the chest. I'm not sure, but next was Evelyn's daughter-in-law, Esther, who had married her oldest son. Esther also put her wedding gown in the chest at Evelyn's. Esther ended up dying soon after this. Evelyn's Aunt Sarah, this keeps going on of just examples of who was affected by the chest. So Evelyn's Aunt Sarah knitted a scarf and gloves for her oldest son to give him for Christmas. Evelyn kept the gifts in the chest to hide until Christmas morning and then give them to him. Evelyn's son was walking along a train trestle and fell off and actually died just a few days before Christmas. A lot of other tragedies befell Evelyn and her immediate family. Another son of Evelyn's was in a bizarre work accident and ended up being crippled for life. Sorry, my notes are all over the place. And then crippled for life, and other things just happened to the family. They always were falling in financial hardships, and it was just crazy. So poor Evelyn and her family just really got the brunt of this curse from the chest. Materialistically, though, the family was really, really well off. Evelyn's husband, Malcolm, was really successful. He built a business empire that consisted of mills, food mills, grain mills, I guess, houses, coal yards, a wharf, and even a dry goods store. So they were really well off when it came to materialistic things. The family was very wealthy, but the material things and the financial comfort couldn't help Evelyn. She was haunted by everything that had stricken her family. It took a toll on Evelyn to the point that she ended up actually taking her own life. The chest was then inherited down to Virginia Hudson. Virginia was Evelyn's granddaughter, so here it goes to another couple generations. Virginia had heard about the rumors about the curse, but just figured it was all family hearsay or family stories, which she later found out, sadly, that she was wrong. Virginia put her firstborn baby's clothes in the drawers, and that child ended up passing away during infancy, like we've seen in these other cases. Another child's clothes were put in the drawers, and that child contracted infantile paralysis. Another daughter, as an adult, ended up putting her wedding gown in the chest of drawers, which you think they would have heard these stories, but I guess, when you think it's just stories, you don't think that something like this can actually happen. But her other daughter, who lived up until an adult, ended up putting her wedding gown into the chest of drawers. Soon after, her husband ran off and was never seen again. Virginia's son, whose clothes had also been kept in the chest, had a terrible accident. He was stabbed in the hand and had to have it amputated. So sometimes, it wouldn't happen right away after whoever's clothes were put in there. It would just be people surrounding the chest or later on after they put their clothes in there. A family friend ended up keeping his hunting clothes in the chest. He ended up being shot and killed in a hunting accident. And so the curse continued on. This was up to 16 victims now who all suffered, and they all had one thing in common. Sorry, paper notes. They all at one point had kept personal items inside the Conjure chest. Virginia then finally, of course, definitely believed there was a curse and wanted to put an end to it. She finally was hopeful when she heard that her African American elderly friend named Annie was familiar with voodoo and dark magic, and conjures and curses and stuff like that. Annie said that the curse or spell that Hosea's friends placed on the chest could be broken if they did these three things. First, Virginia would need to be given a dead owl without asking anyone for it, so she had to just be gifted it, which is really rare. Second, they needed the green leaves of a willow tree, and they needed to end up boiling these leaves in a pot from sunup all the way till sundown, so just let them boil all day long. Third, the boiled liquid would need to be buried in a jug with the handle of the jug facing east, below a flowering bush. Luckily, just like by some miracle, Virginia's son had actually been given a taxidermied stuffed owl years earlier. So that's just crazy. Virginia plucked the leaves of a willow tree that she had on her property and boiled them all day long. She and Annie, at dusk, put the liquid into a jug and buried it underneath a lilac bush near the kitchen window, making sure that the handle was facing east. But it wasn't until after they did all of this that Annie said they'd only know if the curse was broken if one of them died before the first full days of fall. Annie ended up actually dying shortly after in early September. It was as if she sacrificed herself in order to save her friend and her friend's family from this dark curse. But some darker stories claim that Annie did it as a way to also help avenge her slave ancestors and to be able to come back and haunt people. So you never know. I think Annie actually did it to help this family. So Annie was the 17th and last known victim of the Conjure chest. The last private owner was Virginia Hudson's daughter, Virginia Main. Even though she knew of the curse being lifted by her mother and Annie, she never kept anything in the chest, and she kept it completely hidden away in her attic. Mrs. Main ended up donating the Conjure chest to the Kentucky History Museum. Even though the curse has supposedly been broken, the museum also keeps the chest very guarded and is very careful with guests when they visit it. Inside the top drawer is a little thing holding 2 owl feathers that actually came off the owl that were used in, the spell-breaking ritual, and also an envelope with a handwritten letter from Mrs. Main's mother, the first Virginia, saying all of the history about the chest and the list of the chest's victims. It said that even though the curse is lifted, the chest is still haunted by those affected, especially Hosea, Evelyn, and Annie. Those are the 3 main active haunts of the chest. On Zach Bagans' show Deadly Possessions, the curator of the museum actually brought the Conjure chest to Zach's museum for him to see it and for the show. Zach invited Mrs. Main, the last owner of the chest, to come and see it, and even had her join them as they investigated it. She hadn't seen the chest since 1976. During the investigation, they all felt a strong female energy, and there was extremely high EMF detection around Mrs. Main, who she also felt was the presence of either Annie or Evelyn, her how many great-grandmas? However many greats. They took still photos of Mrs. Main standing next to the chest. In one of the photos, there's an orb that can be seen right next to her. And if you zoom into the orb, it looks exactly like an owl. I'll try and find a picture and insert it here. So yeah, other than that, museum staff have reported strange encounters and going-ons involving the chest, as well as people who visit the museum, strange voices, weird feelings, and all that stuff. So if you want to see it, it is still at the Kentucky History Museum. I would love to go visit it someday. I will not touch it or even open the drawer to look at the stuff in there, but it's just crazy, to think that an object could possibly kill people. Obviously it wasn't the object, it was the curse, and you never know. Yes, Annie passed away, which she said is proof that the curse is broken, but you never know. I feel like an object like that, especially made out of wood, has something called the stone tape theory, which is, I might do a video on it. It's when like things in history will attach themselves or like imprint onto something that's made out of wood or brick or stone and stuff like that. If that makes any sense. Maybe I'll make a video going more in depth of it, but something especially that's made out of wood, it's even if the curse is lifted, that thing is still going to be haunted with all of the memories and everything that happened to that family and everyone else that affected. So what do you guys think? Have you heard about the Conjure chest before? Let me know down in the comments below. And give this video a thumbs up if you are excited for the rest of Halloweek. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.